Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What if the reason you keep falling for the wrong person isn't about them at all? What if it's something ancient living inside you, pulling you toward pain disguised as love? Have you noticed how love, the most beautiful thing, can also become the most destructive pattern? How your heart keeps choosing familiar pain, wrapped in different bodies, different voices? You tell yourself, this time is different, but your nervous system disagrees. It recognizes the pattern and walks straight into it. And deep inside, something whispers, why does this feel like home, even when it hurts me? This video is not about judgment, it's about revelation. You are not foolish, you are patterned, and until you understand that pattern, the archetype behind your attraction, you'll keep calling the wrong person the one. You think you're falling in love. But what if you're just falling into a pattern? It starts beautifully, doesn't it? The way they smile, the way they see through you, the magnetic pull, the sense of destiny. You call it chemistry, but your soul calls it something else. Recognition. Not of the person in front of you, but of the wound they carry, the role they play, the script they activate. It's not the first time you've met this energy. It wore a different face when you were 5 or 10. Maybe it was a parent who couldn't hold space for your feelings. Maybe it was love that you had to earn. Maybe it was silence when you needed softness. Now, decades later, your psyche whispers, this feels like home. Not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. Carl Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, our unconscious drive to recreate early emotional dynamics, hoping that this time the ending will change, so you fall for the distant one, the one who needs fixing, the one who makes you prove your worth. And when they pull away, you don't walk, you chase, because the chase is older than them. It began long before you knew what love was. You replay the role, hoping this time someone will choose you, stay, see you. But they don't, because the point of the pattern is not to heal through them, but to awaken in you. You're not choosing partners, you're choosing mirrors. And until you become conscious of the mirror, you will confuse longing with love, pain with passion, survival with intimacy. It's not your fault, but it is your work. To pause, to notice, to ask, who does this person remind me of? What part of me do they reflect? Because love is never random, especially the kind that breaks you. That kind is a mirror, asking you to see what you've spent a lifetime avoiding. What if the person you loved was never really them? What if they were just a symbol, a living reflection of something ancient inside you that wanted to be seen? Carl Jung believed that deep within each of us lives a world of inner characters. He called them archetypes, universal patterns of human experience that live in the collective unconscious, shaping our thoughts, desires, and relationships long before we ever fall in love. You don't fall for a person, you fall for an energy, a pattern, a psychic image you've carried for years. That's why some people feel strangely magnetic, as if you've known them forever, as if time bends when they look at you. It's not because they're your soulmate, it's because they match an image already living in you. You see, we all carry within us the idea of love long before we meet anyone who seems to embody it. We grow up with stories of heroes and goddesses, wounded fathers and distant mothers, princes who save and women who heal. These stories don't just entertain us, they build our internal blueprint of what love should feel like. And when someone walks into your life and mirrors that emotional tone, your psyche lights up. You think, it's them, they're the one. But Jung would say, it's not about them. It's about what they awaken in you. They don't love you for who you are. They love you for what you represent. And you don't love them because they're perfect. You love them because they fit your inner image. This is the power of the archetype. It makes the ordinary feel divine, the stranger feel like home, the moment feel like fate. But here lies the danger. You're not seeing the person. You're seeing a projection, a sacred role your psyche cast them in before you even knew their name. They become the healer, the savior, the lost twin flame. But no human can stay divine forever. Eventually, the mask slips. They disappoint you. They contradict your fantasy. And what once felt like a miracle begins to feel like betrayal. Not because they changed, but because reality arrived. And in that moment, you have a choice: to resent them or to awaken, to cling to the illusion or to ask, what part of me did they embody? What archetype have I been chasing? Because the truth is this: people don't fall in love with each other. They fall in love with the part of themselves they believe the other person can complete. Have you ever met someone and felt an instant pull, a gravity you couldn't explain? They weren't your type. They didn't even treat you well. But something inside you whispered, this is it. This is what love is supposed to feel like. Except it wasn't love. It was recognition. Not of them, but of the wound they mirrored back to you. You didn't fall for their heart. You fell for the emotional atmosphere they carried, one that felt eerily like home. Not the safe kind of home, but the kind you grew up in. The one where you learned to equate love with waiting, proving, earning, chasing. They didn't give you comfort, they gave you a role. You became the pursuer, the fixer, the one who stayed up all night wondering what you did wrong, trying to decode their silence like a broken language only you could understand. And still, it felt real, it felt deep, it felt like destiny. But let me ask you, since when did pain become proof of love? When did heartbreak become the measure of meaning? The truth is, you weren't drawn to them because they were right. You were drawn to them because they were familiar. They carried the same emotional frequency as someone you once loved who never quite loved you back. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was your first love. Maybe it was the voice in your own mind telling you that love must be earned through suffering. Carl Jung called this the repetition compulsion, the unconscious urge to recreate old pain in hopes of finally rewriting the ending. So you unconsciously attract the same wound in a new body, different face, same ache. You think, this time will be different. But your nervous system isn't built for new endings until you build a new awareness. The wrong person feels so right because your psyche is trying to finish an old story through someone who was never meant to write its ending. And here's the haunting part. You're not in love with them. You're in love with the version of you you believe you'll finally become if they choose you. You think, if they love me, maybe I'm finally enough. If they stay, maybe I'm not broken after all. But they don't stay. They run. Or worse, they stay just enough to keep you hoping. And still, you wait. You forgive too quickly. You give too much. You make excuses. You confuse anxiety with passion and obsession with intimacy. But this is not love. This is emotional addiction to the pain you never processed as a child. And yet, this pain carries your healing, because the wrong person is the one who shows you where you're still split inside, where you've abandoned yourself for the fantasy of being saved by someone else. They're not your soulmate. They're your mirror, your lesson, your invitation to return. To what? To the little you who once needed love and didn't get it, who once needed safety but learned to call chaos home, who learned that love always leaves, and so you fell for someone who would. But now, you have a choice, not to change them, but to see them clearly, not to rewrite the story with them, but to stop recasting them in a role that was never theirs to play, because they were never here to complete you. They were here to show you what part of you still believes you are incomplete. And once you see it, truly see it, you will no longer chase their love. You will mourn, you will rage, you will weep, and then you will wake up and realize the love you wanted from them was always the love you were waiting to give yourself. Recognizing the pattern is only the beginning. Seeing the wound is not the healing. Naming the archetype doesn't yet dissolve its power. Because even when you understand why you're drawn to the wrong person, a deeper part of you may still crave the very pain you've come to fear. And that is the nature of the archetypal spell. It doesn't bind you with force, it binds you with familiarity. You don't stay because it feels good, you stay because it feels known. Because the emotional rhythm of chaos and withdrawal echoes something ancient in your nervous system. The childhood memory of having to earn love in a world where love should have been freely given. This is not weakness. It's not a character flaw. It's the survival intelligence of the child you once were, still trying to secure the affection they never received in the way they needed it most. Carl Jung wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. And often the people we fall for carry the emotional blueprint of those who couldn't love us fully." So, how do you break the spell? Not by fighting the pattern, but by facing the self who keeps recreating it. That means turning inward, not as a spiritual bypass, but as a radical act of reclamation. You must meet the part of you that still waits by the emotional door, hoping they'll return. The part of you that overfunctions, overgives, over-justifies abandonment as if it were your fault. And you must do something almost impossible. Stay. Not stay with them, but stay with you. Sit beside the emptiness without running into the arms of another distraction. Let the ache speak. Let the grief rise. Let your nervous system learn, maybe for the first time, that presence is possible, even in loneliness. You see, the pattern doesn't end when someone finally chooses you. It ends when you choose yourself at the very moment you feel most unworthy. This is the psychic reversal Jung pointed to in the process of individuation. To withdraw the projection, to retrieve your power from the figure onto whom you cast it, and to return it to the one place it always belonged, yourself. Ask yourself honestly, who was I trying to fix when I tried to fix them? Whose love did I hope to finally receive through their validation? What fantasy was I serving, even when reality begged me to stop? And perhaps the hardest question of all, what would it mean to no longer need to be chosen, to feel chosen? Because the moment you no longer need another person to confirm your worth is the moment you begin to experience love as freedom instead of captivity. This is the true breaking of the archetypal spell, when you stop worshiping someone else as the source of your healing and become the sacred container for your own transformation. You stop chasing the one and start becoming the one who no longer abandons the parts of you that were once too messy, too emotional, too much for others to hold. The work is not to find someone better. The work is to become someone who no longer sacrifices themselves to feel temporarily loved. That is not selfishness. That is spiritual maturity. That is individuation. And from this place of wholeness, not perfection, but presence, you begin to attract differently. Because now, you are no longer seeking someone to save you. You are simply sharing the home you've built inside yourself. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that love had to come from outside you, that your worth depended on being wanted. That healing would arrive in the form of another person, someone who would finally see you, hold you, never leave. And so you searched. You searched in the eyes of strangers, in the thrill of new beginnings, in the chase, in the silence after they pulled away. But all along, the ache you carried was not the absence of another. It was the absence of you. You had abandoned yourself long before anyone else ever did. That's the deepest wound of all. Not that they didn't stay, but that somewhere deep down, you believed you weren't worth staying for. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And so we fall in love not just with people, but with patterns. We don't just choose partners, we reenact stories. Stories of longing, of lack, of chasing what was never given freely. But here's what no one tells you. Every heartbreak is holy. Not because of what it takes from you, but because of what it shows you. It cracks the shell of your projections. It shatters the fantasy. And if you're willing to stay, to feel, to grieve, to see, it opens the doorway back to the parts of you you thought were unlovable. Because the truth is, no one can rescue you from a story you are still committed to retelling. You have to put down the script. You have to stop casting others in roles that were written in childhood. You have to grieve the parent who couldn't love you. Grieve the dream of being completed. Grieve the fantasy of the one who finally makes it all make sense. And then, only then, can you begin to live a new story. A story where love is not something you earn, but something you embody. Where you no longer betray yourself just to be chosen. Where wholeness becomes your resting place, not a reward for perfect healing. This is what it means to return to yourself. To look at every person who couldn't love you and say, "Thank you. You showed me where I had forgotten myself." This is not about blame. This is about power, because the moment you reclaim the energy you've been projecting outward is the moment you awaken the most sacred truth of all, that you are the one you've been waiting for. You are the one who stays, the one who sees, the one who never leaves, especially when it's hard. You are the parent your inner child needed, the partner your soul craved, the witness to every sorrow and every seed of light still growing in the dark. This is what Jung called individuation, becoming whole. Not perfect, but real, rooted, present. And from this place, you no longer need to be chosen to know that you matter. You no longer chase ghosts, because you've come home. So when love returns, and it will, you'll meet it not with fear or fantasy, but with clarity. Not with the question, "Will you save me?" but with the knowing, "I have already saved myself." If something in this story spoke to your soul, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What patterns have you begun to recognize in yourself? What part of you is asking to be seen? Your voice might be the mirror someone else needs today. If you'd like more content like this, rooted in psychology, soul work, and self-inquiry, you can subscribe to the channel or join our Telegram community for early access and deeper conversations. And if you feel moved to support this work, you can click the thanks button below this video. Every gesture means more than you know, but most of all, thank you for walking this path, not just with others, but with yourself.